Hello, everybody. Welcome back to On the Fringe. This is Dave. I'm here with Gavin.
Yo,
And Gavin, I'm curious, can you tell me what the Chinese zodiac year is this year?
uh, oh, crap, Dave. I can't remember. It's the
Well,
year of
apparently,
the,
I can't either, but apparently somebody in the PLAN, the People's Liberation Army Navy, thinks it's the year of the ram, especially when it comes to the South China Sea.
right on the nose and right off the nose, too. So this week, this week we're talking about, we'll explain that in a second. This week we're talking about when things don't quite go according to Dave.
Plan, right?
Yes.
Do we need to spell it out?
Once again, the People's Liberation Army Navy. The Chinese Navy is down in the South Seas. They're hopping around the Spratly Islands. Now, Dave, can you just tell me what the Spratly Islands are?
So the Spratly Islands are a group of islands that have been claimed by several countries in Southeast Asia, primarily the Philippines, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, and also Taiwan is claiming these. And one of the
Hmm,
reasons why they're claiming these is because of oil. The
yeah.
USGS believes that there's potentially 9 billion barrels of untapped oil in these islands. So there's a lot of money, and there's also fishing, and there's just a lot of bragging rights as well for having control of these. It's a very strategic part of the South China Sea.
And I can tell you this is a highly emotive issue for pretty much all the countries involved. Definitely a majorly emotive issue for the Chinese. The nine dash line, the famous maritime map they have of South China Sea, basically encompassing the entire region. The Chinese and the Philippines and the Vietnamese, I would say, are really the main players.
Hmm.
The Taiwanese have claims, but they're not really involved. They have bigger problems at the moment. Uh, so the Philippines has people there. They have villages, they have small fishing camps. And the Philippines is not often thought of as a territorially expansive country, but there were Filipino citizens already there when this became a territorial dispute, I would say in like the 60s and 70s. So
Hmm.
they already had a presence. The Chinese are having more and more of a presence with basically every year. They're actively involved in building islands, and they have a larger and larger military presence, and they spend a lot of time harassing Filipino naval convoys who are going to resupply Filipino civilians in a few Coast Guard posts that they have out there. They'll often shoot them with water cannons. They'll poke lasers at them. They will attempt to ram them. I believe there's one case where they did cause fatalities or at least injuries with Filipino Coast Guard personnel. They routinely harass them. And of course, there's a great power dynamic too, because the Republic of the Philippines is allied with who, Dave?
They're allied with us, the United States. And if something happens where the Chinese declare war on the Philippines, well, that's a declaration of war on the United States.
Yes. So the Chinese have been relatively hesitant to outright confront the Americans, but they have no quandaries about confronting the Filipinos, or in fact, the Vietnamese, who have also set up some cell phone towers kind of
Yep.
randomly in the middle of nowhere. I mean, not randomly, they have very strong reasons for doing that. But this is, again, this is a very there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen here. This is not
Yeah.
Chinese and the Philippines going at it, though, as what we're about to discuss, there's a bit of that. More like the
Yeah. Well,
Chinese
I was
going
gonna
at it
just
with
I'm gonna
themselves.
jump in real quick and say too
Please.
that the Chinese have been building islands in the South China Sea for the last 20 or so years, and they've built up military bases, they've built up naval bases, and they
Hmm.
have a base on Subi Reef, which is 26 kilometers south of Thitu Island. It's the island furthest west from the Philippines. And the Chinese are running a lot of sea sorties. They're harassing the Philippine resupply ships and the Philippine Coast Guard with lasers, and they're using water cannons. And it's primarily the Chinese Coast Guard that's doing this. It's not the Chinese Navy, it's primarily the Chinese Coast Guard that's patrolling this area. But they do have naval ships in this area, as we're talking about. And Gavin, what happened with a Chinese naval ship and a Chinese Coast Guard cutter?
So as you Dave's notes as always make this show. Um, he put in a note right above like the main meat of this, which is just one sentence that says something out of an episode of Scooby-Doo, which just accurately describes what happened. So again, Filipino Coast Guard, they're running a supply mission. It was the BRP Suluan. A Chinese Coast Guard cutter is behind it, chasing it, and it seems like it was trying to do a pincer maneuver with another ship, which was actually a PLAN destroyer called the Guilin. So, Chinese Navy destroyer. They tried to cut the boat off and actually T-bone the cutter. So the Coast Guard ship, the Chinese Coast Guard ship, lost the nose. I mean, the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing got smashed off. It
Yeah, the
didn't
cutter
seem
ran into the destroyer and completely just
just,
absolutely smashed its front end.
if you look at a picture of it, which we should
The whole
probably
bow was
include in
just
the app,
gone.
it's just gone. It's just like boom. So the ship did not sink, but it's not seaworthy. Like you are not sailing this boat anywhere, as is totally typical. The Filipinos offered assistance. Chinese completely refused. There's no word on casualties or the cost of damage, and there won't be. The Chinese, People's Republic of China, has a playbook for things like this. They do not talk about it. They will never bring this up again of their own volition. This is not on China Daily. This is not on the Global Times. There was like one op-ed in the China Daily that Dave sent me where it's basically like the Filipinos are being reckless, but then like we're very careful not to mention how they were being reckless, just that they needed to watch out. So this is a massive, massive embarrassment for the PLAN, and they are going to be dealing with it in the short term by refusing to discuss it with anyone.
Yeah. Gavin, I think your magic eight ball there is right on the money. This is such a loss of face for China, where they've had two of their ships crash into each other, and it's 100% pure humiliation on them. And granted, the destroyer's okay, the cutter's lost, but I have a feeling that this is going to potentially even ramp up more missions and more sorties in the South China Sea, where the Chinese are going to go, okay, the Filipinos are living recklessly. What are we going to do? We're going to stop them from living recklessly. We're going to send more ships down there. And I think the more that Chinese ships get involved in this region, and if you have US ships passing through as well, and other countries' ships passing through and trade passing through, you increase the likelihood of something serious happening where you have a direct conflict between two ships from two different countries.
Yeah, and I think the one of the key things to remember about sort of Chinese strategic thinking is they really enjoy compartmentalizing things. And I think that's what they're trying to do right now. As far as the PRC and definitely the PLAN is concerned, this is something that's entirely between them and the Filipinos, and it's really not their problem, it's a Filipino problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can find some way of stopping the Filipinos from being a problem, they will. What they do not want is for other parties to get involved. And this is just such a strong thread in all of their strategic planning and all of their dealings with other countries. everything has to be bilateral and everything has to be hierarchical. They are perfectly fine with having a ton of different bilateral relationships where they tell people what to do.
Hmm.
The US is involved, if Vietnam is involved, if other countries which have security arrangements with the Philippines are involved, they can't do that. And this becomes, like you just said, sort of a like weird escalating spiral where to avoid involving other actors, they will probably try to intimidate the Filipinos.
Hmm.
So they're going to put more people, as you say, they're going to run more sorties. They're going to put more probably Navy ships out there. And I mean, it's worth noting that the presence of a Navy ship is unusual. It's mostly Coast Guard. Again, all of these countries are maintaining the fiction that these are territorial waters. So that's why the Filipinos really only run Coast Guard ships. That's why the Chinese run majority Coast Guard ships. I would expect no official statements coming from the PRC, but more PLAN ships in the region. It may be not as harassing, but there are going to be more of them.
Hmm.
I can guarantee.
Yeah. And you were talking about this earlier, Gavin, where the more people you have in the South China Sea, the more cooks that are in the kitchen, then
Mm,
the margin for error shrinks down considerably. And the chances increase that something could go wrong. And remember, Vietnam War started because of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A U.S. ship, the Maddox, I believe, was, quote, attacked. U.S. invades Vietnam. So you could have something like that play out here in the South China Sea, where somebody's ship gets attacked and they go, okay, this is a declaration of war on our country. And you've got to look at this too, where there's $7 trillion of goods that are moving through the South China Sea. So there's cars,
uh,
25% of the world's cars, approximately 45% of the world's oil. Most of this trade is going between China, Japan, and Korea and over to the Middle East. But there's also stuff going to the US, there's stuff going to Latin America as well. This is the heart of one of the world's busiest, or some of the world's busiest trade routes. If something happens where, okay, this trade route gets shut off, prices are going to go up considerably across the
mhm.
world. And shipping insurance is going to go up considerably across the world. And yes, the US is starting to roll out tariffs, but these tariffs are going to be nothing, I think, if you actually have an armed conflict in this part of the region. Prices are going to go up so much that it's going to get very, very hard to buy things if there is a kinetic war in the South China Sea. The whole balance that's, I guess, within the region is very delicate and it could very, very quickly go up in smoke.
Yeah. And this is, boy, this is a region to watch because I don't think there are very few other regions in the world, including, I would argue, war zones, active war zones, that have as much potential for things going horribly wrong as these tiny islands. It is just
Mm-hmm.
worth noting before we leave you people, there's hardly anyone out there. I mean, I think even if you include military personnel, a couple thousand, maybe in the entire archipelago at the most of whom are transient and military. It is sparsely populated, tropical waters. You don't know what's going to happen next. Uh, just maybe don't be in a Coast Guard ship. Um,
Yeah, or a dinghy.
or a dinghy. Don't go taking that dinghy. Um, anyways, thank you so much for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe. Please comment, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. Tell your neighbors, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell your macaque. Tell hey, people
Tell
have
your
all kinds.
parrot. Tell your macaw.
Tell your tortoise. Tell your porcupine. Um, I don't think porcupines would make great pets. Anyways, not for
Probably
me to
not.
decide. Please
Better than
like, comment,
mosquito.
subscribe. We appreciate our On the Fringe community, and you'll be hearing from us soon on the Fringe.
Thank you guys.